Welcome, climate viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at climateviewer.com and weathermodificationhistory.com. So today we're going to finish up the series I've been doing on cirrus clouds matter, the history of chemtrails, all the different layers of that, and we're going to end with the most important one to most people, and that's the military aspects of it, from carbon black dust to directed energy weapons, from space surveillance to night goggles. Buckle your seatbelt. We're really going to go through this quickly. There's going to be a lot packed in this video. All of the information will be pinned in the comment under this video. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate everybody who supported the channel over the last decade. It's been a hard-fought 24K subs. I really appreciate it. And if you feel generous, drop a donation. It's always appreciated. So, let's just get right into it. So we're actually going to preview the brand new weathermodificationhistory.com that's coming soon. You guys haven't seen this yet. So, the timeline is now back to its original format from the oldest to newest. And it's got completely MLA formatted references and all of that. So I'm going to show the new version of the website in this final video because it's going to be coming out very soon. I appreciate everybody who's tuning in right now. Don't get me started about acid rain at the moment because, good Lord, you can get me sidetracked real quick. So let's flip some buttons here. So just a little bit of remedial work to begin with. This was mentioned in a previous video. U.S. Navy creates and destroys clouds using carbon black dust 1958. And as Dr. Florence Van Straten said, we dropped carbon black suspended in a liquid over a track a mile long and produced a solid line of clouds 1 mile long. When we dropped 1.5 pound dry packages of carbon black, we produced single clouds with each drop. The Navy team seeded 7 clouds with carbon and dissipated them in about 2.5 to 20 minutes. Each cloud turned gray, then rapidly disappeared. Aside from the cost of the airplanes, we spent less than $5 on the experiments in Georgia, and they were using carbon black dust. This is 1958. Okay? So, all the way back in deleted my Facebook. Good for you. I've been considering deleting my anti-social media, censored, shadow banned ass social media for quite some time. So I'm right there with you, Joseph Buck. That's a my next video is literally going to be about how frustrated I am with all of this stuff. So we'll get into that then. Basically, the other articles, carbon black cloud seeding makes weather to order, 1958. Navy creation destroys clouds. Ordinary carbon black is used. Lady meteorologist toys with clouds to sink tranquilizer for bad storms. But the moral of this story right here is that the United States Navy could create and destroy clouds at will back in 1958 using ordinary carbon black dust. This is going to be a recurring theme. That's why we're starting with carbon black dust. Moving along. President Lyndon Johnson also in 1962 through 69 said a couple things about weather that you might find interesting. I don't know. You tell me.
It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
Now, that's not all he said about determining the world's cloud layer and controlling the world's weather will control the world. He said this as well. All of these are the new references, as you can see. I'll blow them up nice and large for everybody at home. And you can see that I have done my due diligence. You guys cannot believe the amount of work I put in the last year going through and finding author, title, publisher, publication dates, all of that sort of stuff, for all of the material that, I'd collected over the last decade, like the Pentagon Papers, the original documents on Operation Popeye. But regardless, he said this as well. Control of space means control of the world. From space, the masters of infinity would have the power to control the Earth's weather, to cause drought and flood, to change the tides and raise the levels of the sea, to divert the Gulf Stream and change temperate climates to frigid. He's literally talking about climate change, to be able to create climate change, to raise the levels of the sea, to change temperate, warm climates to frigid, to freeze places. All of this from space. So now we're going to connect the two together. We're talking about, how LBJ says it's time to change the weather. There's his original Pentagon Papers piece, and I won't play that video. I'll probably get a strike for it, but you can watch it on there. On to Operation Popeye / motor pool / intermediary compatriot weather warfare over Vietnam. Now, Henry Kissinger, the CIA, at the behest of Lyndon Johnson, did weather warfare over Vietnam, using some WC-130s on RF-4 jets. They sprayed silver and lead iodide, and their goals were to soften roads, to basically make the Ho Chi Minh Trail impassable, for the masters of infinity. Oh, they're called the technocrats. You know who they are, those people, those Council on Foreign Relations, special people who think that they are just so much better than all of us. They are your masters. Didn't you know? You didn't get the memo? Well, now you have. Anyway, the slogan for Operation Popeye was "Make mud, not war," and you can see the military patch that they used. 14th Weather Reconnaissance Squadron. I've done a whole lot of additions to weather modification history. You guys are going to find pretty impressive. And you can actually see the silver iodide, ejectors on the side of the WC-130. Right here's another shot of those. The RF-4 Phantom planes that flew the missions as well. And here's all of them together. So I got some additional photography of the original fleet that was doing weather warfare. And the list goes on. You can get into all this and who these individuals are in the Pentagon Papers, and weather war outcry, weather as a weapon of war, cloud seeded over Vietnam, U.S. turns rain into war weapon. So weather warfare is a thing, is weather modification history. But have you heard about solar powered satellites? 1968. What I really want to highlight from this, and this comes from Dr. Rosalie Bertel, is that as long as the program was called solar energy by the United States, it could not be considered a weapons system. And what am I talking about here? We're talking about a solar powered satellite, a solar, just like you would see solar panels on the ground, but these are in space. So solar power then collects it in space and beams it down to the ground and collects it in what they called a rectenna, or a rectangular antenna. Sound like HAARP, looks like HAARP, is like HAARP. So basically the SPS would beam the, laser it down to the ground, and then that could be turned into, energy and pumped to all these different sectors, or out to, carriers and all of that sort of thing. But the important part is that the cycle gets all screwed up here. So variation in natural atmospheric conditions could screw with the beaming of the energy down from space, which creates variation in refractive index, because water refracts, light, it refracts energy as well. Beam wandering, spreading, and Doppler shift, other atmospheric effects screwing with the beam. Beam control instability. Oh no, we've lost control of the beam. ground heating and soil moisture evaporation, while beaming all that heat, heat and energy down from space is going to bake the earth, which is going to cause problems. And all of this will lead to weather modification and eventually to climate modification. Not to mention, when you're building rectennas this large to collect all of this energy that you're beaming down this much energy, oh Lord, if we don't steer the beam the proper way, we could burn up entire cities. So it'd make a hell of a weapon, but it's green energy, don't you know? It's a directed energy weapon from space, powered by the sun. By the way, several solar-powered satellites have been launched today. Japan has done one that I know of recently. So this is all that collected in one image that I created many years ago. Regardless, solar-powered satellites, 1968, directed energy from space. Never was made. They said it would cost too much, but it's getting really crazy today. I understand if you want to bury your head in the sand, Luann. I would too. But regardless, CIA Project Nile Blue, rain embargo on Cuban sugar crops. But the seeding near Cuba was to cause less rain, not more. It was supposed to squeeze the rain out of the clouds before they reached the island. You might say we tried to embargo rain clouds. Did the CIA order weather modification to ruin Cuban sugar crops in 1969 and 1970, or didn't it? Now, there's a lot of speculation on this. There's a lot of arguing on this. Of course, it's top secret. The Vietnam weather warfare became public. There was unavoidable. But this entire Cuba affair is still, up in the air, to say. It is unlikely, however, that the program was quite so benign. In 1962, years before Nile Blue program was initiated, ARPA had contracted for a classified research project with the title Some Upper Atmospheric Aspects of Chemical Geophysical Warfare. I would give anything to read that. If anybody can find me a copy of that, mail it to me. My address is on climateviewer.com/about. I want to read that paper badly. Regardless, all the different links to that. And you can see here, CIA are the weathermen. Another CIA plot, Cuba crops. And then, of course, a Canadian actually sued because they were using his patented technology to do weather warfare. So that's pretty funny that they actually, got sued over, patent infringement for doing weather warfare. CIA tampered with Cuba's weather. And of course, that's in the cover image right here. And I included that up there because I thought it was pretty nice. With Henry Kissinger just, looking on like, this is a great idea. Let's do some weather freaking warfare, man. Moving along, we're going to close that page because this is actually the entire weather warfare archive. That's Secretary Cohen talking about blowing up stuff with EMF. The Environmental Modification Convention, this is the weather warfare ban that came after Operation Popeye. As a result of, the weather warfare, there was a treaty signed. This is a copy of that treaty and the hearings that led up to it. It was originally called the Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques, aka the Environmental Modification Treaty, or ENMOD, ENMOD. And, other documents on that, you can actually see the United Nations documents, who signed it, who didn't sign it, and, some newspaper articles lots of newspaper articles about it. I just included 2 to just save us some time. So we're going to jump all the way forward from 1978 to now we're getting into what's going on semi-recently. And Freedom of Information Act requests, for those who aren't familiar with them, are, requests that you put in to the government to say, hey, tell me these secret things. We already know about them. Give me all that you're going to allow us to know. So, of course, we're not going to know the full picture, but we can draw enough from these Freedom of Information Act requests, or FOIAs, to make a real determination on this cloud problem. What people would say is the secret government program to do weather modification. Why in the hell would the military want to make clouds? I mean, that's the question of the day. Let me know in the comments if you're, trigger happy and you want to get ahead of it. Maybe you could put your guess in before I actually spill the beans in the rest of this video. But why do you think the military would want to make clouds? Well, I can tell you it's pretty obvious from what's going on here. Solar heating of carbon dust could be deployed on a theater scale to achieve precipitation enhancement, to create cirrus clouds, and to dissipate fog or low clouds. And then they go into previous lab work and when, the project plan milestones that, by 1997, which is the very first video of this series, Cirrus Clouds Matter, engineering design of test engine modifications. 1999, ground-based field trials completed. Airborne test and evaluation of prototypes completed 2001. Engineering design of airborne carbon black delivery system completed 2003. Operational capability 2004. And this comes from the sunshineproject.org. Their website has been deleted, but of course I've included those web.archive.org. You can go to the Wayback Machine and see the originals right here in ENMOD Sunshine Project, and it has these FOIA documents. So that's where I'm actually getting all this information from. And this is from the U.S. Air Force Phillips Laboratory, and the title of it is Weather Modification Using Carbon Black. So now we have the United States Navy in 1958 saying we can create and destroy clouds using carbon black dust. We have the U.S. Air Force Phillips Labs in 1994 with a Freedom of Information Act request saying the same thing. We could use carbon black dust to increase or decrease precipitation, increase cirrus cloud cover, to deny visual satellite or high altitude reconnaissance, to decrease light for nighttime operations, to deny visual satellite or high altitude reconnaissance, to block out spy satellites and spy planes, and to decrease light levels for nighttime operations, to make it darker at night so that we have night vision goggles. Well, apparently the Taliban do too now. But we have night vision goggles and they don't. So by blocking out the moon and making it darker, it would give the military an advantage. So those are the two reasons stated in this Military Freedom of Information Act request from the U.S. Air Force in 1994, saying why the military would want to create cirrus cloud cover. By the way, all those planes farting out all those clouds are making what? Cirrus clouds. But that's not all. FOIA from the U.S. Navy weather modification program still active at China Lake. Non-lethal warfare proposal, weather modification proposed by code blah, blah, blah at the Warhead Development Branch of the Naval Air War Center, China Lake Weapons System. And it says successful completion of the proposed effort and follow-on ENMD programs will give the U.S. military a viable state-of-the-art weather modification capability again. I know of no countermeasures, meaning there's no way to stop us if we're doing weather warfare. How can you? God did it. It was climate change that did it. Plausible deniability, the ultimate weapon. It's pretty obvious when you shoot off a nuclear bomb. Big freaking mushroom cloud, atomized everything. But weather warfare, if if you want to do something secret and sneaky and all that. And you can see that Freedom of Information Act request here, right here. You can't argue with these. These are facts that you're not going to find anywhere else. These are facts you're not going to see anywhere else. Hopefully somebody else will, pick up this narrative and start to follow the facts. Maybe even a reporter or journalist. Oh, wait, there aren't really any of those anymore. They certainly aren't interested in weather warfare because that's just conspiracy theory talk. But regardless, these are the numbers. James A. Weeks at China Lake, California, with a phone number. Probably doesn't work anymore because this is 1994. But hell, call up China Lake, record the conversation, send it to me. Be probably pretty interesting. And these are the cloud seeding bombs that were created at China Lake back in the day. So they're right back at it. And that does not surprise me in the slightest. Freedom of Information Act request, U.S. Air Force paper, Counter-Force Weather Control from SpaceCast 2020. Now, 6 pages are partially releasable, 23 pages of which are fully releasable. So out of this entire volume, they still have much of it blocked out. So many of you have heard of Air Force 2025. We're going to go over that in just a second, owning the weather in 2025. Few people have heard of SpaceCast 2020, and even fewer have seen that there was a, hidden part of it, which was in SpaceCast Volume 2, and it literally says secret, no foreign, this is classified national security information, redacted sections, all that good stuff. But why do I bring this one up? Because we're talking about clouds here. And in it, they actually refer to a section on the U.S., the Russian Air Force. And I don't know why I don't have a screenshot of that, so I'll just bring it up real quick. And this is brought to us by the Black Vault. If you're not familiar with the Black Vault, you should be. Pretty impeccable work being done over there. And I'm going to just try to find this page real fast because it's important. And let's see. And Russian. There's them punching a hole in a cloud with some carbon black, or with some CO2. And that's Hurricane Andrew. And where was it? Previous Russian weather modification efforts. This demonstrated an ability to generate infrared defeating clouds, effectively denying overhead surveillance. Look how much of this is blocked out, by the way. Everything around this is blocked out. They do not want you reading this still to this day. Top secret. This is 1994 now. I mean, maybe we could actually get the facts by now, but I seriously doubt we'll ever know all of that. But in this document, they reference even Russia doing the ability to generate infrared defeating clouds, effectively denying overhead surveillance. So again, Russia recognizes that creating clouds blocks out satellites in space or high-flying planes, blimps, whatever, so that they can't spy on each other. So there's one of the main reasons that the military cites as their, thinking behind creating clouds. Weather as a force multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. This was at the U.S. Air War College, 1995-96. And of course, if you talk to any debunker out there, they'll say, well, this was just a think piece. This was done by, some college kids. This isn't the official, stance of the military. So why are you even bringing this up, Jim? Well, interestingly enough, in there was this chart. And in this chart, it talks about all the different technologies and when they would happen. And it talks about the global weather network, sensors, computer modeling. Yeah, we got all that. Communications, yes. Chemicals, duh. ADV is aerospace delivery vehicles. Yeah, we got that. Star. Anything with a star is technologies to be developed by the Department of Defense. Directed energy weapons, AIM, artificial ionospheric mirrors, and SC is smart clouds, nanotechnology. All available now. This was 1995 and 96. These are all the technologies that were available in 1995 and 96. And then right next to it is this CBD, and they're not talking about cannabinoid oil. CBD, carbon black dust. Once again, third mention, 1958, Air Force FOIA, 1994, owning the weather, 2025, carbon black dust. Technologies to be developed by the DoD. The same thing that was said in the FOIA. And it says 2005, which is exactly the same time. It said 2004 would be operational capability in that FOIA. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I mean, it is a coincidence because clearly there's a link between the two. Of course, they talk about a whole lot of other things like, the weather analysis and modification system, like a global weather network, shielded base, space operations through the Looking Glass global area strike system. I really went through this with a fine-tooth comb. Most people only read Owning the Weather in 2025. You can check all this stuff out yourself. Even attack microbots, sensor microbots. All them nanobots, all the bots. But that's weather is a force multiplier, Owning the Weather. And by the way, I mirrored all of those materials here, so you don't have to just get them from archive.org. I have permanently saved all of the PDFs to weather modification history. They will be available once I release this new version of the website, so they will forevermore be saved. Now, as I said, a lot of people will say, well, okay, you got a FOIA, you got the 1958 thing, you got the Owning the Weather thing saying carbon black dust. Oh, they can create and destroy cirrus clouds. But that doesn't make it real, Jim. This does. Test Technology Symposium 1997 Weather Modification. This is March 19th, 1997, where Dr. Arnold A. Barnes Jr. from, wait for it, the U.S. Air Force Phillips Lab. Do I really need to go back to it? Who was that? Was that the Air Force Phillips Lab? Oh, yeah, that was the Air Force Phillips Laboratory in the FOIA. What did he say? What did he say? So we got Dr. Arnold Barnes from the U.S. Air Force Phillips Lab talking about owning the weather in 2025, and he goes on to put his foot in his mouth repeatedly. But just for your personal enjoyment, these are the slides from the original presentation he gave. I do have links to the original. This was originally on dtc.army.mil. So you can see the original archive of this and know that I didn't just make this stuff up. You can actually go over to the United States Army Military Developmental Test Command site where it says Dr. Arnold Barnes. Here's where I got the presentation from, the compressed PowerPoint file. This is a meeting that really happened. This is what real references look like. Okay? So we're going to go back to it. And it basically, this is a joint Army Air Force meeting. And in it, they say some interesting stuff. They go on to talk about all of the stuff from Air Force 2025 potential weather modification capabilities. But, they talk about, there's that, ENMOD treaty. It's kind of a thorn in our butt. But the official Air Force position needs to be reevaluated. Let me get my face out of the way. In light of 19 years of scientific advances, in light of advanced weapon systems which are more environmentally sensitive, and to prepare against technological surprise. So screw ENMOD. We need to be prepared with our weather warfare toys. So how are we going to do that? What are we going to do? Oh, there's HARP. There's HARP. Do drop the HARP slide. And all of the details are in here on this. But what in the F is this? This is the fourth time we've got the military mentioning carbon black dust. Why does he say? Same reason the FOIA said. Same reason that Air Force 2025 said. Increase precipitation. Decrease precipitation. Make it flood. Make it drought. And then he drops the bomb on all the chemtards and chemtard debunkers. Increase cirrus cloud cover. Because we can use carbon black dust to deny visual satellite or high altitude reconnaissance to decrease light level for nighttime operation. I think I've proven my case. I could keep going on, and I'm gonna, but the point is clearly made that carbon black dust is the weapon of choice for weather warfare today. That they can create and destroy clouds at will, they being the United States military. This is only about the U.S. military because we happen to be one of the freest countries in the world. And, you know, unfortunately for, you know, I guess our military, we're getting, you know, the information, you know, that nobody else would. But remember, you've got Russia and China and all of the other countries. They're probably doing the exact same thing. In fact, we know Russia is, because in 1994, they said Russia was doing the exact same thing. But carbon black dust for cloud creation and control is the one thing that you never hear anybody talk about. They talk about all of these secret agendas and all of this. But, I mean, it's right there in your face. I'm directly quoted from the man at Phillips Lab in the Air Force in a FOIA, previously mentioned 1958, Dr. Florence Van Straten. All facts. And he talks about storm modification like hurricanes and stuff and all of that. Oh, there's that butterfly effect we might have to worry about, you know, because chaos and unpredictability. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, nobody can control the weather. You can attempt to modify the weather. You can weaponize weather, but controlling it, control is not a word I would ever use. So as I said, you know, there's that. Steering cyclones and thunderstorms with the Thunderstorm solar powered satellite by Bernard Eastland. Bernard Eastland's also of HARP fame. He's one of the individuals who created the original patents for the artificial ionospheric mirror. He went to go give a speech at the Weather Modification Conference in 2008, but he unexpectedly died before that happened. So Lyle Jenkins, on behalf of the late Bernard Eastland, gave the presentation for him, and you can actually see that entire presentation on my YouTube channel. But this is what the Thunderstorm solar-powered satellite would look like. We mentioned the solar-powered satellite in 1968. He proposed using the same idea to steer tornadoes and hurricanes, that directed energy microwave beams from satellites could be shot at the, you know, different parts of the storms to either excite them, steer them, or, you know, if you're being nice, make them go away. But we know how, you know, the military isn't exactly about
the plasma pattern. Then there are certainly some ways to be able to evaluate and use that to define certain weather phenomena and provide a basis for the computer analysis of thunderstorms and weather systems. And Ben was involved in this high-frequency auroral antenna research project, which was somewhat infamous. It's the HARP project on the North Slope of Alaska, and I'll describe that a little later. But here's the concept that Ben defined, that we could have a pattern-forming beam that is associated with a particular heater, and the idea was...
You get the point. So the point is he keeps referring to him as Ben, but Bernard is Ben, obviously. And this was from the session to... what did I just do? That was not supposed to happen. Oh, I didn't grab the end. This is from Atmospheric Heating as a Research Tool at the Planned and Inadvertent Weather Modification Conference. New Unconventional Concepts and Legal Ramifications, April 2008. And it's doing this not found thing where you just literally hit F5 and refresh it, and then the page comes up. So I don't know what's going on with the AMS website lately. It's being really stupid. See, I just hit refresh 3 times. It comes back up. But they also talked about on engineering hurricanes and all of that sort of thing in this same little section here. Moving along. So why am I bringing up solar-powered satellites and thunderstorm solar-powered satellites? Because now we're going to tie all of these together. Why don't I get alerts for your live stream? Nick, I think you know the answer why you don't get alerts. Because despite me being on YouTube for a decade, despite me sharing stuff out and trying to care, a whole lot about getting this information out, I am still shadow banned AF. That I constantly, every single day, I log into the YouTube Studio app, which is for the creators, so that I can read the comments from, you generous souls who actually made it to the video and took the time to comment, watch the whole thing. And I watch my subscribers disappear like magic. And then I get messages and emails from people who say, I was unsubscribed from you. I did not do that. So that's why you're not getting alerts for my live stream. It's Google. It's Alphabet. I mean, bro, I'm talking about weather warfare here. You think they don't have buddies? I mean, they share all their data with the CIA, who is kind of the topic du jour, as you'll see in just a second, because we're totally about to go there again. But regardless, operational defenses through weather control in 2030. This was April 2009. And basically the general said, create localized fog or stratus cloud formations, shielding critical assets against attack from energy-based weapons in space. And that, basically we could create clouds to defeat directed energy weapons and optically targeted attacks on United States assets. So there's a third reason, and you can see the original document here, a third reason why the military would want to create, like the Russians did, infrared defeating clouds, microwave defeating clouds, directed energy weapon defeating clouds. Because if you have a solar-powered satellite, and you have a thunderstorm solar-powered satellite, and you have lasers and other high-powered particle beams in space that can target ground-based forces, then creating clouds to defeat those weapons is a thing. And they say so. Also, the CIA is very interested in clouds and geoengineering and rogue geoengineering. Rogue geoengineering is when a country decides to geoengineer the planet but doesn't tell all the other countries. So, they're kind of also concerned about detecting weather warfare and rogue geoengineering. They didn't say so until Alan Robach, who is a geoengineer himself, he's a geoengineering scientist, said, I got a phone call from two men who said they work as consultants for the CIA, and we'd like to know if some other country was controlling our climate. Would we know about it? Now remember, the CIA did Operation Popeye. The CIA did the weather warfare over Cuba. Now the CIA is calling a geoengineer to say, if some other country was controlling our climate, would we know about it? I told them, after thinking a little bit, that we probably would, because if you put enough material in the atmosphere to reflect sunlight, we would be able to detect it and see the equipment that was putting it up there. At the same time, I thought they were probably also interested in if we could control somebody else's climate, could they detect it? Straight from a credible scientist with a PhD who got a call from the CIA and blew the whistle. Now, I covered this back in 2015, the CIA weather warfare and climate terrorism. And the original article, let me go back to this. You know, this was covered on RT and like everywhere all over the place. You know, oh my God, CIA called them up. Well, it turns out at another one of the weather modification conferences, Diane Seidel answered the question, could we detect rogue geoengineering? No, she says. Potential detection of engineering increases in reflected sunlight. And in it, she said, although very large albedo increases are potentially detectable, chaos determines we would never be able to tell the difference. That basically, if they were to change the sun, if they were to block enough sunlight to make it freaking obvious to anybody, that the world would know. So they are possibly detectable. But generally speaking, with the best sensors on the planet, we could never, it says the interannual albedo variability, or every year the amount of sun blocked by chemicals in the atmosphere, varies so much that it overwhelms the maximum conceivable increases associated with leading proposed solar radiation management schemes. In other words, we cannot detect rogue geoengineering. We cannot detect weather warfare. We cannot detect climate modification. There is no protection against it. That's why the CIA is asking a geoengineer about this. Diane Seidel from NOAA Air Resources Lab answers the question. And this was in 2015. So now we're in a situation where we've got the military who wants to create clouds all over the planet, which will block sunlight. They say they want to do it because satellites and stuff, and because directed energy weapons and stuff, and because, you know, night vision goggles and stuff. And this is a lengthy article. I go really deep on the CIA, like the Climate Intelligence Agency is what I called them at the time, and how they had a CIA Open Center for Climate Change and National Security. CIA closes its climate change office November 2012. The CIA for several years has studied the national security implications of climate change, but as a part of a broader realignment of analytical resources, this research continues to be performed by a dedicated team in a new office that looks at economic and energy matters affecting America's national security. So the CIA may have closed their climate change office, but they continue the work somewhere else, less public. Back to the story. And of course, many of you have probably seen this, and this is remedial for some of you, but why not? Let's do it.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse.
Bruh, he said ocean acidification. He didn't say nothing about acid rain. He didn't say they don't call it acid rain anymore. They only talk about ocean acidification. But continue on, Brennan.
Gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Others might seize on SAI's benefits and back away from their commitment to carbon dioxide reductions.
What he's saying there is that if you do geoengineering, that it's basically going to get wetter in the northern hemisphere and drier in the southern hemisphere, which is going to kill a whole lot of brown people in the southern hemisphere and flood a whole lot of people in the northern hemisphere, because any changes in blocking out the sun and doing geoengineering could lead to weather control. And we're just going to leave it at that. You can watch the rest of this. I'm going to save my commentary. But regardless, head of CIA at the Council on Foreign Relations, aka the New World Order lobbyist organization, talking about how he likes the idea of geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol injection, and all that stuff. So is it a surprise to you that the CIA did weather warfare in Vietnam, that they did weather warfare over Cuba, that they're interested in geoengineering, that they actually funded a scientific study on controlling global climate, $630,000 to back these studies, and says conspiracy theorists rejoice. This was in 2013. And what was that? That was in 2015. Oh, yeah. Climate intervention reflecting sunlight to cool the earth. And this is from the National Academy of Sciences. And, basically, this was a study that was backed by the CIA, reflecting sunlight to cool earth. They called it climate intervention. So for those who weren't following along, we went from geoengineering to geo means earth, and we need to be more specific. Let's call it climate engineering. So the DC Geoengineering Group renamed themselves to the Forum on Climate Engineering Assessment, FCEA. Okay, you're no longer the DC Geoengineering Group, you're the FCEA, Forum on Climate Engineering Assessment. Now in 2015, they want to call it climate intervention, because engineering means, well, if you engineer a thing, engineered things break. Like you engineer a car. Well, what if it breaks? Well, if you engineer the climate, what if you break the climate? So engineering has a bad connotation. Everything for these individuals is about word control. It's about slave speak. So you got to give that perception management, that mind control aspect of it. Let's call it climate intervention, because we're intervening in the climate. It's almost like the climate is a crackhead and we have to have an intervention. Okay? So that's where climate intervention comes from. Funny story, they actually just recently tried to rebrand it again as climate restoration. So now we've gone from geoengineering to climate engineering to climate intervention, CIA, and James Roger Fleming. He had obviously heard me joking about the CIA wanted to call it climate intervention. So I was actually part of that study, and I was the one who suggested climate intervention. I was like, oh, my bad. But anyway, climate intervention to climate restoration. Funny stories. All about them words. So that takes us ahead to, well, what's the worst case scenario? Well, what about, if you took the technology of HAARP and then you put it on a drone and you made an atmospheric lens, but then you could actually focus sunlight through that lens, just like they did. The Nazis tried to make one. It was called the sun gun. And even before that, they talked about, and I could bring it up real quick because it's not that hard. Back in the day, this is 1929. Space mirrors to focus sunlight and melt the polar ice caps. And in it, you can see the most dreadful weapon, the burning mirror in space. The idea of putting a magnifying glass in space to focus the power of the sun to melt the poles. And then the Nazis said we could make a sun gun. We could put a magnifying glass in space to burn up the Americans. Well, now you got BAE Systems saying, well, let's just roll the video and kill the audio there because God forbid, probably got music. They basically say, well, let's just use HAARP technology to make an artificial ionospheric mirror, but we're going to do it with a laser beam. And by creating this plasma pattern in the upper atmosphere, not only can we now make a magnifying glass, which we can then focus deeply on the Earth. Like that. Oh, look at there. It's a big freaking magnifying glass made out of our atmosphere. And now we can spy down on the ground. Oh, but wait, we're in a Star Wars today. And even the Chinese government is shooting laser beams at our spy satellites. So, adversaries could use heavy laser weapons to prevent surveillance of their activities, which the Chinese are doing today. And in this case, apparently with their atmospheric lens could also function as a defensive shield against those laser beams. Block the laser beam. And so could the clouds that they're creating. So what's the moral of the story here? Because it's getting real weird. The moral of the story is that weather warfare is still a very credible threat. That the Iranian brigadier general, as late as 2018, accused Israel of cloud theft. That once again, we're in a case where back in 2011, Ahmadinejad accuses West of stealing Iran's rain again. Before that, 2011, Ahmadinejad says Europe's stealing Iran's rain. And then all the way to 2018, Iran general says Israel behind climate change and is stealing their clouds. And of course, he says Israel and other neighboring countries. So the whole point of all of this is that we really need a solution. And my solution is that the weather warfare ban of 1978 needs to be updated, needs to be given some teeth, because with all of the information we know that weather warfare is occurring. We know that space warfare is occurring. That's why Trump created a space force, because of, hijacker satellites, kamikaze satellites, laser blinding of surveillance satellites, the potential for upper atmospheric electromagnetic pulse to destroy every GPS satellite, to take out your satellite TV, Elon Musk's SpaceX 5G from space satellites. satellite real estate in low Earth orbit's pretty important stuff and expensive, and they don't want anybody screwing with it. So, we're back to military makes clouds, block out all that space crap. Military makes clouds to defeat directed energy weapons from space. Military makes clouds to make it darker at night, so we have the tactical advantage with night vision goggles. So at the end of the day, now you know it. So what are you going to do about it? Carbon black dust. Spread the word. It's the same stuff you find in a laser toner cartridge. Carbon black dust is dirt cheap. It is readily available, and it is the weapon of choice. Given all of the military references I've just given you, it should be readily apparent that not only is there, pollution coming from planes, plane farts creating clouds, creating climate change, trapping heat, melting the poles. Not only are they trying to control those contrails coming from all the commercial planes using biofuels and all kinds of other technologies. Not only have they been creating clouds since 1948, and they were sued in 1970 by the state of Illinois and New Jersey, but on top of all that, the military claims the ability to create and destroy cirrus clouds at will, and they tell you why. So if you look at the chemtrail conspiracy through this lens that I've laid out in this series, hashtag cirrus clouds matter, I'm going to put all of these videos into one playlist. They will be pinned on the front page of my YouTube channel from here on out, because people don't want to understand the truth. They don't want the long version. And sadly enough, literally we're getting to a point where with TikTok and now YouTube with these short videos, people watch 30-second freaking videos. I can remember a time, even as late as 2014, when people were still watching hour-long videos. Why so serious? Exactly. Nobody takes any of this stuff seriously anymore. And I kind of feel like, people like me, we're almost like a dying breed in the YouTube world, where, making an hour-long video and trying to give people facts on complex topics. If you have I read Alana Freeland's books? I am in Alana Freeland's books. I talk to Alana Freeland on the phone. My map is in the center of Alana Freeland's book. So, yes, I know Alana Freeland. She's good people, and I suggest everybody read her books. The point being, this is a complex topic, and I hope that, if you find like-minded souls who want to know the whole truth and nothing but it, and are willing to dig deeper, I will put all of this into a playlist, and it'll at least be in one spot and have been said. And you can, everybody has the attention span of a flea. But never forget that a small group of dedicated individuals can change the world. In fact, they're the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. And you are that small group of dedicated individuals. And I appreciate the 121 live viewers we have right now who stuck it out to the end. Because at the end of the day, it's you lucky few, who care enough about this topic that are going to spread the word. Because I don't have the ability to do that. I am shadow banned. The things that I share on Facebook and Twitter and anywhere I share them, for that matter, they just magically disappear. One guaranteed way you can get an update on my latest videos is if you sign up for the Discord channel, our chat room. I have a bot that basically posts every time there's a video, once it's complete, not when it's live, unfortunately. Maybe we can get that going in the future, so that the minute I go live, it puts it in there. But I do intend on flipping my schedule up some to where I make my videos in the morning and then they're released at the same time each night. Because, this going live late thing is getting kind of old with, I got children and it's tough. And I am the Lorax and I do speak for the trees. And unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And until the last who in Whoville raises their voice, none of us will be heard. So it's your job now to spread the word, because sharing is caring. Take this information and share it with as many people as possible. And with this information comes power. And with power comes great responsibility. So please take this information and use it to attack ideas, not people. Love you, mean it.